As we told you at the top of the hour, the Olympic Committee is considering halting this year's games in Tokyo. Our sports director, Jack Doles, has been covering many of the Olympic Games over the years, and Jack is with us now to talk about these developments. Jack, thanks for taking the time. First of all, what are your initial thoughts on this development?
Well, I think they absolutely should postpone these games, Leon, probably for a year. You've already seen the U.S. Swim Committee, or the president of the U.S. Swim Association, the president of the U.S. Track and Field Association come out and say this should be delayed. It's for fairness of the athletes across the world. I mean, look at the athletes in Italy right now. How can they train? And we're seeing the U.S. athletes, the gymnastics team, the men which train in Colorado Springs, they've been kicked out of that facility because of the coronavirus. So where do they train? U.S. boxing team had to be sent home. Where are these guys going to train? Especially the contact sports. How do you train for a contact sport when you really should not be making contact with another athlete? If we're talking about staying 6 feet apart, how do wrestlers train when they have to be body to body when they're training for something as big as the Olympics and the Olympic trials? We're going to start to see Olympic trials dates almost assuredly. We've already seen wrestling postponed. We're going to see more postponed. So a lot of athletes now saying, in fairness for athletes all over the world, they've really got to push this back.
Seems highly unlikely that this situation dissipates by the time anyway. What do you think the holdup is? Why haven't they gone ahead and pulled the trigger?
Well, Tokyo spent about $26 billion to host these games. They would love to host these games on time, but you don't want to have an Olympics with empty stadiums. So far, from what we hear, Japan hasn't been as hard hit as many other countries, but we don't have facts from Japan at this point on the number of coronavirus cases they have. So I think that's the big holdup right there, is they want to give Japan as much time as they can to make alternative plans, to see if they're going to be ready. But for the safety of the athletes and the world at this point, I know it's still a few months away, but it just common sense would say push these back to 2021.
Right. And unfortunately, unlike a lot of other things, the Olympics is every 4 years. So for some, it's not just a matter of waiting until next year. For some, this will be their final chance to do this.
Almost certainly. I mean, it's a pretty rare athlete that gets to compete in 2, 3, even the rarest of 4 Olympic Games. So for a lot of these athletes, this is probably their one and only shot. If you push it back a year, the guys on the boxing team have already earned their spots on that team. So Joe Hicks, the Godwin Heights grad, he's already got his place on the U.S. team. Now he's still got to qualify for the Olympic Games. He thinks he'll be a better Joe Hicks in another, whenever that next tournament is that he's got to fight in for the qualifier. But that's not the case for some of the older athletes. I mean, you look at some of the U.S., one of the U.S. Marathon athletes, was he 42, 44? How are those legs going to be in another year? So, yeah, there are so many unknowns, so many questions to be answered. And for a lot of athletes, this is their one and only shot, Leon. But common sense still has to be not about the few, but about the many.
It's got to prevail. You're right, Jack. All right, we'll have to wait and see what happens as things develop. Jack Doles reporting from the Doles compound as we acknowledge social distancing, even in our work here. Jack, thank you.